Welcome to our fifth TCG Global Insights panel and the final in our COVID-19 series. We'll give everybody a few minutes to get on. I see people adding as I'm speaking. I'll go ahead and introduce myself as we're waiting. I am Christy Harner, the Chief Marketing Officer at TCG Consulting. I truly hope all of you are well, safe with your families or a few colleagues as we begin the slow and careful journey back to our offices. I just have to say on a personal note, it has been such an honor to work with our team building these panels. And like you, those of you who have attended regularly, we have gained so much insight from all of our customers, colleagues, and partners who have been part of this experience. Through these unprecedented times, we've been able to come together in events like these to discover what's happening around the world with travel meetings, payment and expense programs, and learn how companies are keeping their travelers safe, healthy, and traceable. Last week, we spoke about technology and workflow integration, and I'm so excited this week we brought together leaders who oversee workspaces and lead travel for their company and for companies around the globe. Okay, bonus slide here. If you have missed our other COVID-19 panel events, please visit our website and our panel page. As you can see on the screen, we have resources and recordings there, and we will be announcing some upcoming programs that will be added to this page soon, and some announcements at the end of this panel. So during the chat today, if you have any questions for one of our panelists, please send it in via the chat box. Our leadership team will see it and will either tackle it today or during the event, or we'll work on to answer your questions in the following weeks on LinkedIn or on our blog. So although it's not the end of our TCG Global Insights panels in general, today marks the end of our COVID-19 series, and we'll be talking to our panelists about lessons learned, what they are doing to return to travel, and what their restart plans look like. We'll also try to get from them any future predictions they have. I know I have some predictions, I'm sure some of you do, so feel free to share those as well in the chat box. And that's enough for me. I now want to hand things over. Looks like we've added a lot of our attendees, and I think it's about time to get started. So I'll hand things over to Albert Terrace, the founder and president of TCG Consulting and the host of today's panel. Albert, take it from here.
Great, thank you, Christy, and good morning. And thank you everyone who's joining us again for the fifth session. So it's probably appropriate that today's panel session is titled Restart. In accordance with preparing for this, I got my hair cut last night, some 11 weeks after I'd last seen my barber. She reminded me of that. And so, what do you think? How does it look? Well, today we have some of the most talented and respected leaders with unique vantage points that will provide insight into what has happened, what is happening, and things that we should be on the lookout as we look at the road ahead. I want to thank the participants from our first four panels who set the standards for all of these sessions, the first four. I'm very confident that today's leaders will maintain or even reset the bar for the insights today. With some opening of states and global markets around the world, we're already kind of in a state of restart. It's just the pace of which we come back and whether there'll be a second wave. Yet, to our surprise, and based on the survey from the May 13th event, only 21% of the respondents said they have a restart plan ready to go and approved by leadership. We hope that others that are now looking at building a plan and those who built a plan or might start one will relook at it and take insights gained from today's group. With that, we'll go back to March 9th, never again, right? That won't happen. The world paused on that date, or a date that's local to your markets, and new protocols are being established even as we speak today. It's again appropriate to recognize my TCG team members who make these events just magically appear. Again, well done, thank you. And so with that, I'd like to name the panelists from our first four sessions, and I want to thank them again before I go to today's sessions. So for Bruce and Ike and Jamie and Brett and Doug D and Doug W and Mark Zuber and Marshall and Tammy and Jake and Judith and Jose and Blake and Shlomo and finally Marshall. Well done, guys. Much appreciation for your contribution so far. And with that, I'd like to introduce today's panelists. Brian, if you would go first, followed by Suzanne and then Tom, before we start our session.
Good morning. Good morning, Albert and Christy. And first of all, it's a delight to be here. I want to recognize the TCG team for all the work they've done in these panels. It's an honor to be here with Tom and Suzanne. Thank you for participating on the panel. And again, I want to reiterate my thanks to everyone who's participated on the panel. We are a tight community. It's been fantastic to be able to have one another, to share perspectives, and help all of us as we navigate these unprecedented times. My background, I'm actually a physician by training. My MD has been on the wall hanging there for 20 years collecting dust. You know, I didn't realize I would have to dust it off and bring it back and refresh myself on some of the things I learned in my previous career over 20 years ago. But it's been actually exciting and interesting for me to use that medical knowledge I have. For the past 20 years, I've had the privilege of being the president and CEO of Frost Travel, working with a tremendous team who I also want to recognize for their hard work. First of all, the first part of this crisis was bringing people home. They went through heroic efforts to do that when we went into the first phase of this crisis and the lockdown. And I'm thankful to all my great colleagues for going above and beyond for our customers. It's a core value for us to deliver the unexpected, something they live and breathe every day. And I'm very grateful to our Frost team. So thank you, Albert.
A pleasure. Suzanne?
Hi, I'm Suzanne Pacino, Director of Global Workplace Strategy at WSP. I've had multiple roles throughout my career, and some of them have involved travel, some of them have involved other administrative functions. But today, I'm responsible for the workplace for WSP, who's a company of professional services engineers around the world. We're about 50,000 strong, and this has been certainly a unique event that none of us really would have expected a year ago today. And what I have found the most remarkable thing throughout this, which tends to happen in any kind of event like this, is the collaboration of teams around the world has been tremendous. Whether it's within our own industry or outside of our industry, people that you know and you trust really come together. And anybody who has called me for information, I freely give it. Because I think that that's the only way that we will be able to get through any of these kind of events and learn from it and move forward. So I'm thrilled, as always, to help TCG and be part of the TCG family. They're close to my heart. We've been involved together for over 18 years. So anything that I can do to help and support this is always a great honor for me. So thank you, Albert and team.
Thank you, SP. Tom, please, in Austin, Texas.
Yes, hi, I'm Tom Campbell, Vice President of Support Services for Tokyo Electron US. And we are a US subsidiary of Tokyo Electron, which is a global semiconductor equipment manufacturer. And I'm privileged to be able to lead the support services team, which is a group of professionals around the US that support many of the support functions. So travel, fleet, facilities, real estate, marketing communications, and EHS. I've been with this company for, this is my 25th year. And I will have to say it is probably the most interesting year I've had. But, you know, just as Suzanne mentioned, you know, what's been really encouraging is the collaboration that has happened with our customers, our suppliers. We've had more communication with our customers and actually our competitors as well in the last few months than I think we've ever had. And it's all been very positive and all in an effort to keep operations running.
Great. So you've got our panelists. Christy, if we can, let's go to the next one and go to the survey results. And it was the first time we asked a question in the first 4 sessions. And it was, does your company have a formal and accepted plan to restart travel? We were surprised by the response that only 21% had completed a plan. 18 haven't even thought of doing one, and 61% are somewhere in the midst of that. And with that as a backdrop, our questions today are 3. What happened and how do we get through the crisis? What are we learning today? And the last question we'll ask of the panelists is, what are we on the lookout in the future? For those in attendance, if you would, please send through questions. I'll do my best to either blend the questions into the questions asked and pose it to the panelists, we'll try and save room at the end for additional questions. And with that, Christy, let's go to question number 1. And it's really about what did happen, the event and the response. And so what did we learn from these events? What is the corresponding economic impact? And Brian, I'll start with you. I'll go to Suzanne and then Tom. Brian, you're up, please.
Thank you, Albert. You know, I think what we've learned, this is a very, very unique crisis. And if I look at it, it's not just one crisis, it's really made up of 4 crises. It's a biologic crisis, which started, again, a virus that triggered everything that we know. It's secondarily a media crisis. And again, when we talk about a media crisis, we talk about so much misinformation. You know, I'll touch on some examples that we know, but even going back to March 16th, an Imperial College study out of UK, which we all know about, that predicted more than 2.2 million deaths in the United States, more than 500,000 deaths in the United Kingdom alone from coronavirus 19, right, or COVID-19 as we got to know it. Again, what we've seen is numbers far different from that. We've seen in the United States currently around 100,000 deaths from COVID-19, and in the UK we've seen the neighborhood of 37,000 deaths so far. So again, a lot of information. This is just an example of so much misinformation, part of what we call a media crisis. The next thing is it's an economic crisis for us. We've seen the impact, unemployment numbers that we haven't seen since the Depression times. And that's something unprecedented for many of us, something new in our lifetime. And finally, it's a political crisis. Certainly in the United States, we're into an election season, and there's so much information around from a political angle. So we know this is something unique, this crisis for us. It's different from the financial crisis. It's different really from all previous crises, and I think it's important to know that. What that has contributed to, next thing, is fear, unbelievable fear. And everybody has a different level of fear. So it's important we understand that as we restart, we're really focused on treating fear as much as anything. Again, we're reminded of the saying, the greatest fear is fear itself. And we'll talk through that because we are dealing with that and understanding we're dealing with individuals. Our focus is on personal safety. All of us who have responsibility for other people in our organizations, our customers, our true concern for one another and for everyone in the community. But again, we're scared and we're anxious about life and moving forward, right? So I think it's important to understand that. Another thing we've learned is this concept of phase, right? A phased approach. We went through phase 1, which was a voluntary global lockdown, something again, absolutely unique. And we all sheltered in place. Now we're entering a new phase. Albert's titled this Restart, but phase 2, it's again coming back to life. What does it mean living, coming out of the house, and what does it mean getting back to traveling? And we'll talk some more through that later on. But we learned about phases, right? So we're in phase 2, and ultimately phase 3 we'll consider back to normal life, whatever that's going to be for us. And as we work our way through phase 2. So Albert, I'll stop there and move on.
Perfect. Suzanne, your perspective. What happened and what did you deal with and how did you respond?
Well, I think I would call it the awakening of the severity of COVID-19 and what it was going to do to the business really started to happen for us probably around March 13th, March 16th. That was the last time that I flew, and being somebody who flies all the time or travels, I've never been home this long. I think probably a lot of you on the panel and listening are also in the same place. You know, you haven't been home on the ground for this long a period of time for quite some time. So, you know, those events really kind of came slowly. You know, first it was, you know, less people were at the gym, less people were flying. My last flight, it was pretty empty. There were a lot of people not in the airports. And then it became something where it became much more serious. You know, we started to see a real change in certainly the media coverage and the political coverage, everything that Brian just talked about. And we saw a change in our offices, you know, as states, as countries closed down, we started to see the offices shut down. And for me, being involved, you know, globally with all of our workplaces, it became like 3 weeks of, you know, working nonstop. And how do we support our employees that have just not stopped going to work? right? How is the technology? How are we going to be able to, really take care of our clients and our people, or through this? And that economically is different in every region. I think the lucky thing for us as professional services, we are able to work from home. And that's a lesson that we've learned greatly. It was never something that we thought about as a company. We talked a lot about telecommuting. We talked about working from home, being flexible, the agile environment. But this really put it to the test. And remarkably, through all of our regions, we have found that we have been able to work from home. And we are very lucky that we've been able to work from home. However, what we've also seen is that their office is not dead. People do want to go back. People, the word we hear a lot is we're chomping at the bit to get back in the office. And then when we go further into this session, it's about how you plan to do that, whether it's how do you plan to travel again, or how do you travel to your office, to travel to your client, or to go back to your office. So the good news is that we've been able to sustain our workforce. Each of our countries, we work in a very distributed model. So each of the regions really have been on their own timetable. But it's been a good thing as far as the ability to work from home, and we don't see that our productivity numbers have really dropped all that much. The economic impacts, I believe, are here for a long time. This is not a blip event. I think you'll certainly see it in corporate real estate. You're definitely going to see it in travel. You're seeing bankruptcies now. I think those will be longer term. I think it'll be truly the strong will survive, and we'll be much more diminished.
Thank you for that. So Tom, we talked before, right? So you guys have been up and running, not as normal, but in a different capacity, using the word essential. You guys have still been out and moving about. Tell us about what happened,
Yes.
the impact.
Yes, we have, Albert. That same weekend that Suzanne mentioned is the weekend that things really changed for us as well. The semiconductor industry is considered an essential business, and with so many businesses all having employees working from home, the demand for technology has actually increased, and so our customers' demands on us has increased, and that's about 60% of our workforce that's actually on site at the customer. The remaining 40% all of a sudden had to work from home. And we were not a work from home company previously. We didn't even have a work from home policy. So quickly, we had assembled a business continuity planning team. Well, I shouldn't say that. We always had a team, but we certainly created kind of a task force to address all of the issues, and they were coming pretty rapid fire in the first few weeks. So, we, as a company, really embrace some of the collaborative products that are out there in terms of software. We've also all learned all the different tools for video conferencing. And we've also really pushed and embraced remote monitoring of our tools at our customer sites so that we can keep track of those tools without actually being there. I will say that one of the big things I think that we learned is that we had to do a lot of pivoting. Our teams felt, I'll give an example. At first, we were real hesitant to allow employees to bring home office equipment, such as monitors and chairs, things like that. But we realized that some of our employees actually didn't have a comfortable chair to sit in to work at home. So we had to quickly make policy changes to allow that to happen. And this continued for the first month. It was just a constant reviewing, listening, making changes. And, that went along with learning from our customers as well, and learning from our partners and our sister companies in the different countries. So overall, the economic impact has been not so much in the semiconductor industry. It's been full steam ahead. In that sense, our employee base was pretty fortunate.
Good stuff. Great. So different viewpoints coming into events that happen that shaped our world, right? And sometimes you just learn on the fly, or you're dusting off a plan, or you're trying to deal with realities of so many dimensions coming in. Christy, let's go to question number 2. Suzanne, if you would, you're going to be coming up. And so the second question is, what factors are going to drive a return to travel? And in your perspective around the people side, right, coming out of travel and travel management and broad services and real estate services, a great vantage point. What's going to get people back to driving an economy?
Well, I think I've thought a lot about the question, and and I get asked a lot of questions around this, and really, I don't have a crystal ball, but I do think confidence. As Brian said, people are afraid, so I think confidence in the mode of travel, right? Whether it's a commuter rail, or taking a subway or a bus or something like that, but I believe that we have to be confident that whatever we do, we're not going to get sick, whether right, wrong, or otherwise. That's what people are going to think about. Oh, I'm not going to get sick if I'm sitting on an airplane, right? That I have some kind of confidence that the person next to me is not carrying any kind of virus. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult. I think first we'll see, for us anyway, we'll see client-based travel, and it will be minimal. It'll be in country, because we're setting up our offices to have very limited visitors, and our clients happen to really like coming to our offices. So our clients are in the same places we are. We deal with a lot of government agencies. So I think we'll see that first. We'll see congregation in the offices and domestic travel first. And I think we'll probably see more people go by car and possibly rail than airplane, for a whole host of reasons. And then I think this is going to be a long restart, right? I think we'll see some, beginnings of, people who are currently domestically traveling, but we still have travel bans, particularly in the United States. The Canadian border is closed. That's my home office. So the Canadian border is closed. So until those things start to dissipate, we're going to see a very, very slow restart. I think there are two key factors when we talk about this, about any facet of this, whether it's office life or, traveling. We need some kind of medical response. And I'm not saying necessarily, a vaccine, but if we knew there was a medication that if you got sick, you didn't die, and I'm being extreme here, then I think people would go on with their lives pretty well. But we're going to see some knock-on effects of this, but it's going to be a very, very slow start, and we need to see confidence from the providers that provide us travel, that to travel you will be safe. And you need to have a responsible body of people who are not traveling when they are sick. So we see things like in Asia where you see your temperature is constantly being checked. If you come into a country, you're going to be asked a set of health questions. I think all those things will continue, and probably will be here to stay.
Tom, so you're already traveling, right? Suzanne's going to get her people confident, right, and not going to put them out there until you've already been doing this. What are you looking at today? What are some of the things that you might be changing at Tokyo in terms of how we do it?
Well, I think Suzanne really verbalized our feelings as well, this feeling of confidence. We have been continuing to travel during the whole pandemic period, but it's all been by vehicle. We have not been flying any of our employees. And that's exhausting for the employees, and it's very inefficient considering that most of our employees are moving to great corners of the country. But we are going to take it slow, and we are going to really watch what's happening in the industry. Of course, the airlines are coming to all of us with all of their plans and their cleaning regimens, but we're just going to watch it very close and slowly begin to put people on planes. We've decided to convert our agents to, I guess you could call them, more travel care specialists. So we've been ramping them up to handle not just a booking, but also providing what we're calling a care document, in which the employee will receive, here's all the barriers and all of the new things you're going to encounter on the trip. Whether it's this hotel doesn't serve breakfast anymore, or when you return back to your customer, you're going to have to wait 2 weeks, or all the things that they're going to have to address on a business trip. And then we're also going to have a post discussion with the travelers so that we can understand what their experience was and kind of build our knowledge base, all in an effort, just like Suzanne said, to kind of help understand and build our confidence for our travelers and for us to feel comfortable that they're going to be safe traveling.
Brian?
Yeah, no, a lot of great feedback. And I think, look, before I start, when you can't travel, you realize how wonderful travel is. And I think I have to start with that, missing the wonderful privilege that we have in traveling. I do it for work. It's not the same being on a Zoom call, the chance to have face-to-face meetings, a chance to have meals together, things that we used to take for granted, and the wonderful privilege that we have in traveling. Never mind the personal travel and amazing places we get to go. So it's exciting to even talk about returning to travel. But when we do it, comfortable safety, personal safety is above and beyond anything else, right? I think that is at the foremost for anything that we talk about today. But we have to understand risk assessment. We all take risks every day in everything we do. In fact, I've been flying over the last few weeks. The highest risk activity I have been taking is actually driving to the airport. My chance, there are over 1.2 million motor vehicle deaths in the United States each year, but I didn't have a second thought about driving to the airport. I'm more thinking about what's my experience going to be from the time I park at the airport, go through security, boarding process, being on the plane, etc. Right? There's a lot of anxiety because of everything we've been around, and that's part of the fear that we're treating. So I think it's important that we assess risk. There are a group, like Suzanne said, who are just rearing to go. They have cabin fever, ready to get out. And those people have assessed their comfort levels and their risk and absolutely ready to go out and travel. That's one group. On the other end of the spectrum, we have some people who are scared to leave their homes. They absolutely are shell-shocked, and it will take a lot for them to leave their homes. So, and then there's everyone else in the middle. And we have to understand people are different, and how they're going to react and how they're going to restart will be on a different pace. So it's important that we know that. When we look at a restart plan, it's important that we understand and empathize with people. We must empathize no matter how they feel. We're all human beings and we all feel differently, and have that and know that personal safety is above and beyond anything else. And we empathize with them and are going to work with them to feel comfortable. We have a fiduciary obligation to our employees. So it's important that we incorporate empathy into the program. When we're looking at what it is, we are going to have to look at travel policy reviews. Again, there are going to be some different components that we need to incorporate into travel policy. Duty of care has always been about traveler tracking and communication with the traveler, always been important. Now more so than ever, it's important that duty of care incorporates health and safety standards. And that's something that's even more important than ever before, to have compliance with the travel program. And I think, we're also going to have to think about approval processes. What's right? Again, as I said, people are different, companies are different in their needs, and it's important that we understand what's appropriate approval processes for travel for different company cultures. Finally, I think we take a responsibility. We as a TMC, we as a consulting business, we feel it's imperative that we take a leadership in providing proper information. Again, there has been so much misinformation about it. What are true risks? What are people concerned about? Again, they're scared of the unknown. What is the experience of travel going to be like? Be it on, as Suzanne said, be it on a train, or be it in a car, or be it in an airplane. What is it going to be like? And I think it's important that we are a repository for information. Our advisors are much more consultative in everything that we do to help explain what that travel experience is going to be like. Again, when companies open their borders, what is it going to be like to enter these countries? What kind of testing or screening process, etc., to expect? I think there's a lot of fear about that. I, having traveled again the first time, I thought, wow, let's see what this is like. I've gotten used to it and back into the comfort zone, something that I've done very regularly. And it's important that we do that and make sure we take care of all employees step by step.
Great. So for the last questions, right, we're doing great on time. Thank you very much. So Tom, I'm going to start with you. Brian, I'm going to come back to you. Suzanne, you're going to end us. And some people have come specific to your last comment, Suzanne, and said, how do you see rail safer than air? And so when you talk about your people in the future, the different modes of transportation, is there different thoughts on that? So Tom, we're going to look into the future, right? What do you think this looks like? What do you think happens? What are things that you're looking at around your leadership table that you're discussing on an economic side, as well as getting out of this and what Tokyo looks like in the future?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we anticipate that our customers will just continue with high demand. So we see our business continuing to be strong. The need for technology is just going to continue to grow, especially given a lot of the changes that other businesses are going to make and their need for more technology. So we know that we've got to figure out, how to have a sustainable support team to help support that industry growth. Some things, if I were just to make some, I guess, bold predictions, we do anticipate that we'll probably be using our offices differently than we have in the past. I'm sure we'll probably look into a longer term option for people that do perform better at home or partially at home. We maybe will look into a lot of things that other businesses have maybe done for a while, which is, more hoteling of the office rather than dedicated workspaces. And I think that, I think Brian had mentioned this, we're also going to use this time to really enhance our duty of care program and make sure that we're not, again, just tracking travelers, but we're also understanding what hospitals are in the area. Do those hospitals have Japanese language support? Can we make sure that all of those employees know how to access that type of support if they need it? So we're gonna use those lessons to make improvements to that area. As far as another prediction, I do think that as far as our company or industry going back to maybe the levels of travel we used to have, I think it's going to take a really long time. I don't think this is going to be something that's just the lights are going to turn on. For an entire industry to be, kind of in a lockdown for so long, I think until there's a treatment, a vaccine, some way to make sure that, you're not going to die when you go on a plane, that level of travel is going to be a while. So this is where we think it's going to be at this point.
Well done, Tom. Thank you. Brian, different perspective on getting people confident, getting them back on airplanes, sitting next to someone on that airplane.
Yeah, no, I also agree. Again, there are, as I mentioned before, people are different. So some will be comfortable right away and some will take a longer amount of time. So I also predict a slower recovery. What I can tell you about traveling, what that looks like. Everything is clean. I give huge kudos to all our supplier partners because things have never been so clean. Even Grand Central Station is cleaner than I've ever seen it, amazingly, right? So hygiene is something that, again, for all the germaphobes, the airplanes are cleaner than you can imagine. The hotels are doing amazing things to clean the hotels. So that's something I think you can expect. Social distancing, I think, is another norm we've been accustomed to. The concept of social distancing, it's respectful. Travel is conscientious. I think what you've seen, and I can say from what I've seen, in all the people I encounter are more conscientious of one another. Employees are absolutely appreciative of the business. And you'll continue to see that. I think it's something that's been refreshing and certainly commendable to see. So employees care about their customers, people care about one another. So they're trying to, and again, to social distance and follow all those proper protocols. When social distancing is not possible, we wear masks again, and that's again out of concern for one another that we do so. So I think we all know that cleanliness and social distancing are really part of what we see as the norm. One thing I do suggest to people, carry snacks on the plane. They are giving only certain snack boxes, closed packages. You may or may not like those things that you can get. So carry your own snacks, again, until numbers come back, and that may take a while. Some of the food options in the airports are closed again. So be prepared, take food. As I learned from my dad, we always carry some nuts and some chocolate and other things, but take whatever is comfortable for you to travel with, so you have something in case you can't find it, or in case of delays that we always carried it for in any case. I think you'll see some levels of testing. Suzanne had talked about taking a temperature. A lot of hotels are requiring their employees that they take temperature all the time. Some hotels will encourage people to take their guests as well before they can enter the building to take their temperature. You may see that in some airports as well. So the idea of testing, what does that look like? And expect some component of testing in different places. And that's a mixed bag, right? So it starts with taking a temperature. I think the other idea of screening for the virus, again, there's antigen and antibody screening, but antigen screening, or the test for the actual virus itself, again, we're seeing lots and lots of advances. We're seeing advances now where they can test directly from a breathalyzer. We're seeing tests that can now do it from saliva, where before it was always that nasal sputum that they put into your nose to draw some sample. So we're seeing much easier testing with saliva or breathalyzer, and we're seeing much faster results. Now we're seeing tests that are looking at 1 to 2 minute results. With that being less invasive, with faster results, again, we may see that along our journey in different places. The other thing that I think we'll see as part of the travel experience is a lot more focus on information technology. It may be in some places we'll test before we travel and show that we had a negative test. That may satisfy, again, some countries and some protocols, etc., to show that you've had a recent negative test. Others may require us to have a test on arrival, right? But some of us may capture that before we travel. There'll be also a lot of focus on wellness and maybe incorporating some of your medical records. Again, there's privacy issues we have to deal with, but again, we may incorporate more, certainly longer stays in hotels, even on the leisure side, on cruises. There'll be more focus on wellness, more epidemiologic studies, more testing while you're there, and all of that information will be collaborated with your data from before travel, right? So I think you'll see more robust integration of technology and information together. Certainly, we've seen many countries testing and tracking. That's something also very exciting, but more robust testing, and then using your devices, Google, Apple, again, in case you come in contact with someone who has recently tested positive, you now can be tracked and you can then self-isolate, right? So it's a more direct approach to those who have been exposed. Those are things I think that we'll see in different degrees. As I mentioned, cleanliness and social distancing are going to be across everywhere. The others will be found in some different degrees across the travel experience. I can say, traveling, I wear a mask when I don't have social distancing, so carry that mask with your snacks, be prepared to put it on, to be conscientious. I encourage everyone to have a comfortable mask that you can put away and put on when you need it. It's not foolproof. I think, again, when we say assess risk, we cannot expect everyone to wear a mask 100% of the time they're on a plane. People are going to eat and drink, and they're going to take their mask off, because you cannot do that. I think people need to understand that happens. It's also not practical to social distance on an airplane and expect airlines to be profitable, right? So some of these things, I think it's important that we're transparent with our travelers, let them know exactly what to expect, know that all these things are being done for their safety. So I think that's what travel will look like. I think, Tom, you mentioned, until we have a vaccine, look, there'll be certain things that are a game changer. A vaccine is a game changer. Again, vast improvements in therapies. We've already seen significant improvements with plasma being treated from somebody who's had it and using their plasma. That's been very successful. Remdesivir has also had some success in going into further studies, and a lot of other different therapeutic protocols. Those things will significantly alter people's comfort with it. Again, so hopefully those things come sooner. We have, everybody in science, I believe in our scientists, and they're working feverishly to come up with results to help achieve these success on a treatment and on a preventative vaccine basis. So I expect we'll see success sooner than later. Hopefully we'll see that in a number of months to help out. But that's the travel experience. I think it's a positive one for me. And I think I applaud all of our supplier partners who are going above and beyond to make it comfortable for everybody.
Suzanne, go ahead, top that.
Okay. It's kind of hard to go first or last.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I want to respond to the question why I think rail is safer. So just and then it kind of ties together what Tom and Brian are saying. I don't know that rail is actually any safer than anything else, but train travel is typically a shorter duration. So those of us who've done a lot of international travel, you know, you're on that plane, you could be on the plane 5, 7, 11, 14 hours. You know, the seating capacities, as Brian just said, is you're sitting next to somebody, you're fairly well confined. And I think on a train, you're able to move more freely. So I think if I think about it, you know, car travel, you're in your own car, anything that's your own, you're safer. Train travel gives you a little bit more leeway. I'm not saying they're necessarily cleaner, but I agree that everybody is doing everything that they can to make sure that all the surfaces and any kind of mode of transportation is cleaner than it's ever been. And then the airplanes, you know, there's always been an issue around air circulation with airplanes and just what may not be truth, but what is conventional wisdom when you get on a plane is that the air that you're breathing is not necessarily the best air. And I think that there's this convincing that that's going to have to happen. So that's my take on the rail. The future, you know, will come slowly. I think we all agree to that. There will be a residual effect on this. You know, we will get past this, right? We will have a vaccine. We will have, you know, or a medicine that it makes it that it is no longer, you know, something that you think is life-threatening. But just, you know, what I've said to many people, every time we've had an event in my lifetime, there are things that stay with you and change the way you operate. For me, this event is very similar in some respects to September 11th. You know, September 11th was certainly a tremendous event, but what changed? Every airline, every airport around the world changed security, right? This event will change how we look at hygiene, how we look at janitorial, and how we do that. So I totally agree with Tom. The offices, while, you know, I feel that they're here to stay, will be utilized differently. The employer-employee relationship will change. I think this has given us, you know, a great benefit in some respects. We trust our people to work from home. You know, there was always that very, also depending on your demographic, like if someone's working from home, are they really working? You know, all of this angst about it. And when you've done this for a couple of months and you realize that you're still profitable and your people are still contributing, that trust has now developed. And I think we will, you know, we will continue to incorporate that. We were also an organization that didn't have, you know, work from home policy per se. So I think we're looking at that. And the office will become a place where you really commute to or go to convene meetings, spend maybe a bit of time, and then maybe you leave. So it will look different. And we will need, you know, the days of a corner office piled high with paper. You can't clean that. So, you know, for me, the things that are going to really change is we used to negotiate rent contracts. We're going to really negotiate janitorial contracts now as well. And hygiene, health and safety, wellness, employee well-being, mental well-being as well. I mean, I heard something today on the news that like 1/3 of Americans are suffering some kind of anxiety because of this. So we're going to have to look at mental health. So I think those things are going to change. I do think there will be residual effects to this, and I think organizations who all like to be profitable are looking at, well, look how much money we've saved by not traveling, and can we restrict it going forward a bit more than, you know, than we did before, right? I am fully in agreement that to meet somebody face to face and have a meeting with them, there is almost an intangible about being able to sit with somebody, share a drink, share a conversation, get to see what, you know, what they are like. You can't beat that, whether you're in sales or you're just trying to, you know, do a program for your company. However, the amount of money we all spend on travel, it's been proven to a great extent that we've been able to survive with less. And I think we will not loosen those reins for quite a while. I think we'll take a serious look. I know a lot of organizations I've talked to will take a serious look at what we call a non-client facing travel and try and do things like this and try and have, Zoom cocktails and that kind of thing.
So it's not quite the cocktail hour. I'll see if I can summarize quickly and keep us on time. A couple of things that the TCG team wanted me to make sure that we put in play here too is we think this is also going to be a takeaway on unaccepted bypass. Historically, a traveler who stayed at a hotel or booked out of system, that won't be allowed. And I think all three of you knitted that together, right? What we learned in that month of anyone who didn't go through the system, the cost of finding them, tracking them, doing everything we need to do won't be tolerated in the future. It's simply too cumbersome. We also think that there is kind of a date, an artificial date of August 15th, especially in North America, when summer ends and the people are going out, for local summer vacations. What will be the advanced booking? So on August 15th, previous travelers will say, all right, where am I going to be on October 1st? Am I going out? And we've heard the word confidence in these political crises and all these things coming together. And I think suppliers are going to look at that and say, is the confidence there? Has the work they've done over the summer allowed people to go back, albeit with different restrictions and protocols? And if they don't, suppliers will continue to take away capacity so they can manage their business. And if that happens, this event goes even longer. And if it returns more quickly than it should have, then maybe it's a slower event, albeit it might be years, but not multiple years. I was in Charleston last week, and their future forecast suggests 90% bookings in the month of June already in downtown. People are now coming back, and you see families coming into that. And so maybe that's a forecast into the future. A couple quick takeaways. I know we're on time, Christy. So Brian's comments, this is a convergence of 4 different events: biological, media, economic, and political. We've learned the word phase here. In Tom's case, 40% of his people are now weren't working at home, and now he's had to adapt to a business like that. Suzanne talked about confidence, right? Nothing happens until confidence goes there, but there's also a rethink by business, the whole necessity and putting people back on the road and what lessons are learned. And so with that, to the panel, right, we did real good. The drop-off rate from the highest point, I'm looking at our little metrics board here, people stayed on, which means you gave insight that they wanted to hear and valued. And we have just about the same amount of people at the start of this as we do today. So I want to thank you again. Thank all the panelists who've contributed to this, what we called COVID-19 series. Christy's going to talk about the next series that we've been encouraged to start running and things we should be doing next. So for Suzanne, SP, and Tom and Brian, nice to see you all, albeit virtual. I'll look forward to when 6 feet is closer. I'll carry my mask. I'll bring different snacks this time. I won't worry on that, or I'll travel with your dad, Brian. And I want to wish you all continued safety and look forward to when we're back together again. Christy, please.
Thanks, Albert, and thanks to Brian, Suzanne, and Tom for your insights. So as you can see on the screen, although this panel wraps up our COVID-19 Global Insight series, there's more to come. Right now, our teams are hard at work building out new programs and resources for our clients and for you. Our next series is coming soon, and we will bring panelists to talk more about this restarting travel, meetings, payment, and expense programs over the summer, and give you insights into what other companies are doing and how you can better build your own program and lead travelers through safety and compliance standards. And like Brian said, helping to overcome fear by having a plan and helping to overcome and show more care and safety for our travelers, like Suzanne talked about. So just keep in mind, we have a date in our minds right now, but for now, just keep your Wednesdays, completely open for us, and check your email, as we will send out an announcement very shortly for this next panel. Okay, really quick, what should you be doing right now? So we all know that this pandemic is not the end of T&E, but rather the beginning of a new chapter. And because of these changes, we are working with our customers, including some of you listening today, to restart and rethink travel, meetings, payment, and expense programs. So first from us, expect a white paper from us in the next week or so in your inbox with insights, benchmarks, and recommendations. Our team right now is hard at work buttoning up this resource for you, and we're really excited to be able to share it with you. The second thing is I highly encourage each of you who are in the midst of restarting or rethinking a travel, meetings, payment, or expense program at your company to reach out to us about our restart workshops, which we are just about to launch. So the space will be limited this summer for these workshops. They're personal, they're virtual, but with your team, and we want you to know about this. You're some of the first people to hear about this. They're going to be customized, again, personal, and include our best experts here at TCG. So to learn more, it's really easy. Just reach out to us on our website, or you can even just reply to the email you got about this panel, and we'll help you get started. So the last thing, we're also offering a lot of COVID-19 and beyond supplier rationalization and assessment programs. So reach out to us about those as well. It's super easy to do that. Again, just reply to the email. We'll schedule maybe a 15-minute conversation with your team to find out what you really need to do next for your personal plans. In the meantime, we will be around sending you information about new opportunities, workshops, additional resources. And again, this isn't the end of our series of panels. And so our next one is coming soon. So thank you to everyone who attended. And we will see you back here in a little while. So stay safe and healthy. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. That's a wrap.
Thank you, Brian. Well done. Thank you very much. Nice to see you all.
Thanks, Albert.
We'll see you soon.